Let's look at the end, the very end, the last story in this week's parsha, parshos behaloscho. So if you're looking in the Chittas booklets, it's page Tzadik Ches. It's you could take an English Chumash, and we're looking at the last three psukim of the parsha behaloscho. The last three psukim of parshas behaloscho. Do you have an English Chumash there? Good. The last three psukim.
Adam is set. Adam is set.
Adam Marisha. Okay, again, the end of Parshas behaloscho, the last three psukim. So there's a story about Miriam has a conversation with her brother, and he says, you know, our brother Moshe Rabbeinu, he married a woman, Isha Kushis. She says Kushis is Gematria Fasmada, a wonderful woman. She's pretty in the inside, she's pretty in the outside. She's beautiful from all the sides. No beyofya, no b'maisim. She's a wonderful woman, and this guy is not treating her well because he's not with her. She didn't know that really it was God's command from when it was from the time they were in Mount Sinai that he was to separate from his wife. So even though they were married, but they weren't they weren't having intimacy. But she didn't know. So she spoke. How did she know? How did Miriam know? Because Miriam happened to be standing next to Moshe Rabbeinu's wife. So when Tzipora saw that Elda Domeida and Misnabim B'machna, that these two became prophets, and Moshe Rabbeinu said, "Wow, amazing! Let every Jew be a prophet." And she heard her mutter under her breath, "I'm not sure how their wives will feel about it." So Miriam understood that
he's separate.
Yeah, it might not be all that great for the wife. So when Miriam heard that, she went and spoke to Aaron. This is not right, what he's doing to his wife. No, that was Lashon Hara. So they got the Eibush that called them all three, Moshe, Aaron, and Miriam Mechutz L'machana. He rebuked them, and after he said this, he explained the difference of every prophet and the prophecy of Moshe Rabbeinu. The prophecy, Moshe Rabbeinu was a different type of prophecy, and therefore whatever he did was straight from God, and whatever she spoke was Lashon Hara, and she was punished for it, and she was Mitzeras.
Why Hashem call Moshe too? He has to call Miriam and Aaron.
Everything is a good question. And Rashi deals with every question here. Look, you see how big Rashis there are? And afterwards, Aaron says to Moshe Rabbeinu, please pray for her. He prays for her. And this is where we're holding the last three psukim in the parsha. He prays for her. Okay, now let's read it inside. The last three psukim. Vayomer Hashem al Moshe. The Eibush spoke to Moshe. Vavia yorak befanel. If her father spit her in the face, halot tekolim, shivas yomim, she would be insulted. She would hide out. If in public his father spit her in the face, she would be embarrassed to show her face in public. Tisoga shivas yomim chutz lamachana. Let her be locked out of the camp for 7 days. Va'achat Yosef, and then she will be picked up. She was locked out of the machana for 7 days. And the nation did not travel Miriam until Miriam was collected. She came back into the machana.
It's missing what Hashem said,
if her father would spit her in the face, but she would be insulted. Right, she would hide out for 7 days.
Right here we have no father that yarak b'fanea.
The Eibush spit her in the face. He gave her a tzaras. The tzaras the Eibush gave her is like a spit in the face.
Okay.
So because she got that spit in the face from Hashem, therefore she should be locked out of the machna for 7 days, and then she should come back
Probably
in.
her father wasn't alive.
Amram?
Amram wasn't alive that time. If Moshe Rabbeinu is over 80,
Yeah, right. So the Eibush says a kal v'chomer. This is one of the kal v'chomers. The kal v'chomer. If it was his father spit her in the face, she'd be insulted, she'd be locked up. So for sure, lachat kam v'kam HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So again, the second, the pasuk 15, but the saga Miriam was locked mechutz l'machna outside of the camp. She was for 7 days. Naso. The nation did not travel ad Yosef Miriam until Miriam was collected. She was taken back into the camp. The achar afterwards, Naso the nation traveled from Chatzeres, and they vayachnu in their camp in Midbar Poram.
What is your?
Let's just learn that even though it's not relevant to us, but let's just read that rashi as well. The last pasuk 14, Vavia Yorak.
What's it in your?
double speed.
No, one is patach, one is choyna.
Basically.
One is
she would be insulted. So for the Shechina, she would have to be she would be insulted. The insult should be good enough to lock her out of the machina for 14 days. Because we know the golden rule in the Kal V'chomer, you never overplay your hand. You only could learn from one to the other. Whatever is here, you can learn there. You can't learn more. Lefikach af ben ezifasi tesaga shivas yomim. Also, when she got my insult, the Eibush says it's 7 days. Okay, v'achat Yosef. These two rashis is really what we're focusing, and mainly we're going to focus on the very last rashi. Oymar in the rashi says kolo asifa murim mitzorayim. Every time it says Tiyosef by a Metzoida, by a person who has the leprosy and is Tomei as a Metzoida, Al Shem Ushulach Mchutz L'Machina, because he was sent out of the Machina. Shunirpa, when he's healed, Nesaf L'Machina, he is taken back into the camp. That's what's called a Asifa. What is Asifa? The word Asifa means Losh Nachnosa, to bring back in. Interesting, this has to do with the Rambam. Those that are learning Rambam, the Rambam that we learned on the end of this past week, Friday Shabbos, the Rambam explains at length that this whole thing of leprosy was on the skin, it could be on the clothing, it could be on the hair, it could be on the beard, it could be in the walls of the house, and there was a punishment for a person that speaks Lashon Hara, because if you speak Lashon Hara, you put a wedge between husband and wife, father and son, between two friends. So the punishment was that also that person gets leprosy, and leprosy he's tomei, he's impure, and he has to be sent out of the machana for 7 days. So that was a punishment, because he's midah keneged midah. This was the eye for an eye. A person who speaks lashon hara, talks gossip, creates a wedge between people. And then the people grow apart. Husband finds out something about his wife, or wife about her husband. Gossip that separates people. So the punishment is midah keneged midah. They get the leprosy, and then they get thrown out of the machana for 7 days until they're pure. Okay.
We don't have that anymore, right?
Oh, so the Alter Rebbe, we're going to talk about it soon. The Alter Rebbe says, the Rambam says that this was something miraculous, and that we don't have it today. The Alter Rebbe says in the lekuti Torah this was a miracle, and it was in the days of the Beis Hamikdash, when Jews inside were pure. It's like a rough when you talk a little gossip in the mikveh. So then there was leprosy, but we have the evil. Unfortunately, is much deeper than just skin. By them, the problem would only be skin deep. It was never deeper than the outside. So that was it. It was flushed out. 7 days they were kicked out. They came back. They were pure. Weitergefahren. They were pure.
By in Tanakh, only twice we know Mitzrayim. Miriam and the one in the Navi that they were outside.
Yeah, that's stories.
Yeah, well, we don't know other.
There's only one story. We hear about Avram Avinu get a bris milah, but from that every Jew got. It was all two stories. Avram Avinu and the son of Moshe Rabbeinu. the two stories, but I mean, every Jew from Avraham Avinu got a bris milah. The story is told twice. But Mitzvah could have been hundreds of thousands, or tens. I don't know.
Nobody knows. Yeah.
But the story is told twice.
Be scared of it, nobody would believe none of it.
Now, it's very important for later in the Shir to know that this is only one opinion in the Rambam and the Alter Rebbe, and even according to the Rambam writes elsewhere that this mitzvah is for all generations, regardless if there is or is no Beis HaMikdash, and for all times, regardless if it's Eretz Yisrael or Chutz La'aretz. The mitzvah is there, which is other. The Rambam says elsewhere at the end of the halachas of Tzaras that in actuality never happened, but the mitzvah is on the books. It's not like the mitzvah doesn't exist. It doesn't happen. The Alter Rebbe explains why. But the mitzvah theoretically is there, and even that, it's only the Rambam and the Alter Rebbe says that it doesn't exist anymore. Maybe others disagree.
When Mashiach comes, Beit HaMikdash will have it again?
It will be so pure.
So we don't need Mitzvah.
Why did Moshe use it in coming out of Mitzrayim?
Because because he spoke. That's what Rashi says. He spoke. He said maybe the Jews won't trust in me and won't believe. So that was lashon hara. He said something negative about the Jews. That's why he was punished with saras. He spoke lashon hara.
That's another one.
It's another story. Yeah, those are several stories. Yeah. Let's continue the last rashi, which is the focus of tonight's year. The people did not travel. The nation did not travel. This honor was delivered to her by the Eibishter, by Hamakim, by God. Bishvil, as a reward for what? Shah achas, for one moment, for 1 hour, for one little period of time. Shenisakfala Moshe, that she got held back because of Moshe. When did that happen? When he was thrown into the river. So what does it say? Shenema, it says in the pasuk about Tei Satzav she stood far to know what will be done with him. Doesn't finish the pasuk. So therefore she was rewarded with this reward that the Eibush said that we should wait for her. The first thing that is obvious, the problem in this Rashi is, first of all, what's bothering Rashi? Before what? Talk problems and Rashi. First, let's understand why that. Rashi has a problem because if you look inside, in the pasuk 15 and 16, it seems redundant. It says, but the Sagar, she was locked out of the Machna for 7 days. So they didn't travel. Next pasuk, and afterwards they traveled. So why do you tell me twice? In pasuk 15 it says, why do you have to tell me Nasa that they didn't travel? Obviously, if you wait till the next pasuk, you will know, because in the next pasuk it says, after she came back to the camp, they traveled. So why does the pasuk have to tell us twice that?
Yeah, but if you don't travel, you don't nasa.
No, that's right. It says even if the previous pasuk 15 didn't say va'am loy nasa, it didn't say anything. It just said, but the sagar Miriam shivas yamim, she was locked 7 days, and then was he'osav achakach he'osav Miriam. Then Miriam v'achar nosom, and then they traveled. We would know that they didn't travel as long. Why does the pasuk say v'am loy nasa? To tell us that this wasn't incidental, because sometimes they were camping out in a place. There was one of the time there were 19 years in one place. It wasn't incidental. The Eibusha said she should be locked out for 7 days. The truth is that the plan was that day they were going to travel. Because if the Torah wouldn't say v'am loy nasa, it would just say achar nasa, that would say it was incidental. God says she has to be locked up for 7 days. She was locked out 7 days. She came back. Oh, well, the cloud got up. They started to move. It was all incidental. So no, it was a special reward. Really, they're supposed to travel that day. But for her honor, for her glory, for her kavod, they waited 7 days. That's the way Rashi answers the redundancy in the pasuk.
Maybe the honor only went off and he started packing the stuff. Then you see that actually we need to travel. But
how Am Israel think, and when they say Hashem said, close her 7 days, minute she getting out, they're getting reward. She getting reward. They're all waiting for her. She did something wrong. She closed out. She got out now. She's going to reward. Why is she going to reward? I know Rashi said because ותקצב אחותו מרחוק, but Am Yisrael did not know that. She just see she was locked out. She's getting out, and look at this. We're all moving now because of her.
How am I still behind on the stuff which I'm over? Sie tun Moshe Aaron in hell. It's three.
No,
Who says that people know? We know because the Torah tells it to
But
us.
people ask why she was locked out. What's the reason? People ask. People talk.
Okay, I'm not sure. I don't know. Okay, so say that everyone asked and everyone knew. So now
Okay.
what's the question?
So why is she going to reward? Because of how we all wait for her 7 days. She got out. We all. She just made mistake. She just made avera. So she going to reward after the avera. Hashem showing.
Right. So there was a leniency in her punishment because she had a big merit. There was a leniency in the punishment. She got a punishment, but there was a big leniency because she had a big sichos.
Could have been much worse.
Right. The Chassam Sofer says that a little different than Rashi. He says that really, the punishment should have been much more severe. She should have stayed in the desert for 14 days alone, in a dangerous place. But it was so dangerous for 14 days. The Rebbe said 7 days. That's what. So we'll get to the Chassam Sofer soon.
Oh, so it's kind of like Klal Israel is being punished, is sharing her punishment because they get to Eretz Israel 7 days later, and they wouldn't have otherwise.
Right. So the truth is that the Ohr HaChaim HaKodesh says that the Jews all loved Miriam, and therefore they all agreed. That's what the pasuk it says. It says Va'am lo nasa. The people didn't travel. The people, it was by popular demand that they waited for her. And the Ohr HaChaim says also, you have to realize that the only water that was available was Naso of Miriam.
Yeah.
If you leave Miriam behind, you're going to have no
They
water
were
to
afraid,
drink.
yeah.
They have no water to drink.
So, Rabbi, they would have traveled and she would have stayed behind? Isn't that a sicha and a parsha behind?
You nailed it. Very good. Very good. You nailed it. This is one of the main things in the Kudus here. Very good. Very good.
Well, you are number one.
Okay. But before we get there, first let's look at the pasuk. It says, "V'ha'am lo nasa." The people didn't travel. Rashi doesn't say the people didn't travel. Rashi says, "Zeh ha'kavet cholak lo hamokim." This honor came from the Eibishter. So who gave the honor? The Eibishter gave the honor, or the people gave the honor? The truth is that Rashi is probably right, because what do you mean the people don't get to decide when they travel and when they camp? The pasuk says that lefi all is on them when the cloud goes up, that's when they move. When the cloud goes down, the people they're going to vote. We're going to vote. They had no say in the matter. The cloud told them where to go and when to go. So the truth is, Rashi's right. If they didn't travel, it's because of the cloud. And the problem is, but why does the Torah says v'achem Naso om, and the Mishnah Soita, for those that just learned the Mishnah and Soita and Daftes, so the Mishnah also says that lefikach nisakvu lo Yisrael, the people, and it's not a question really on the Mishnah, because true it was all about the cloud, but it could be both, that the cloud didn't pick up, and also the Jews wanted to wait on their own free will. But the question is, why is it that the Torah says that the Torah says v'am lo nasa, the people didn't travel, meaning the people agreed to it, and Rashi emphasizes hamokim, that it was a command from Hashem. Why? What is it Rashi trying to bring out? So, in order to understand this, we have to understand a few technical things in the pasuk. Rashi says that she waited for Moshe while he was thrown into the water. Why is it important to know that detail? And Rashi says, the water, she stood meirochik, far. What's the difference if she stood far or close? And he quotes the end of the pasuk, l'deya ma'yosla, to know what's going to happen. Why was all that important for Rashi to quote? So now the question goes to Mr. Rose. Asked a good question. It seems the way the Chassam Sofer says, the Ohr HaChaim, that if Miriam would have stayed behind, she would have been in the desert, just with snakes and scorpions. She would have stayed in behind them. How could you say such a thing? Alter Rebbe says the halacha is if a person has to travel, so he's traveling with a group of people through the desert, a shayora. Comes Shabbos, they say, we're not stopping for you. You're Jewish? You want to stop? We have limited water, we have ammunition, there's beasts. We're not stopping for 24 hours. You want to stop? Pajalista. You do whatever you want. So he doesn't know tricks. He heard maybe stories in the books about all kinds of big tzaddikim that came riding on lions, but he is not sure the lion is going to come for him. And if the lion does come, he's not sure if he's going to ride on top of the lion or in the lion. So he could travel. It's pekuach nefesh. Furthermore, the Alter Rebbe says, in a specific case, you're not supposed to travel ahead of Shabbos, but he's going to Israel. So there's an opinion. He goes, he has to make a condition with the leader of the group that they're going to stop for Shabbos. If he doesn't keep the condition, he keeps on traveling. So the Torah says that the Mitzoida has to stay mechutz lamachna. That's a mitzvah, right? There's a mitzvah. 630 mitzvahs. You have to eat kosher. You have to wear tefillin. Now a Mitzoida has to stay mechutz lamachna for all three machinas. He has to go out all the way for all three. There's three camps. There's the Shechina camp, the Levi camp, the Yisrael camp, and also in Yerushalayim there was the Beis Hamikdash, there was the Harabayis, there was the whole Yerushalayim. Mitzoida got to go all the way out. Okay, that's a mitzvah. But here's pekuach nefesh. Her life is in the line. So do you think that they would leave her behind? Obviously she would travel together with them. Obviously she would travel. So what is the covet? What do you mean there was a covet? And if you say that itself, the pekuach nefesh, she saved Moshe's life. If that was, but that's not what Rashi says. Rashi says there was a covet. This is not. The Rashi doesn't say, oh well, she would have stayed in the desert. It would have been pekuach nefesh. Rashi says it was a covet. What was the covet? There was no covet. Could you imagine they would leave her in the desert to die in the desert? Do you think it's conceivable they would do such a thing?
Maybe because when she watched Moshe when it was by the Nilos, right? She didn't stay next to her, watching from far. So she's getting punished not to stay far.
No, it's not. I'm not sure there was a reward. Elamai, the Rebbe says like this. Beautiful chakira. Question can be asked. There is two mitzvahs. There's a mitzvah that you have to vishalchum in amachna kol tzarua v'chol zav v'chol tamal nefesh. The bezdin has to send out of the machna every person who's not pure. Sometimes they have to be sent out of machna 1, Shechina, machna 2, the Levia, machna 3. The Mitzoida gets kicked out all three. Okay. Then the pasuk says, "Boded me yeshiv chutz lamachna meshava." He has to sit secluded outside the machna. Boded yeshiv chutz lamachna meshava. Now, in this second mitzvah, what is the mitzvah? Is the mitzvah that he shouldn't be in the machna, or that he should, or that he shouldn't enter the machna? In other words, he's saying, am I sitting on top of the chair? The chair is under me. It sounds like the chakira in the yeshiva. What makes the tea sweet? The sugar or the spoon? Because without the spoon, the sugar would. No, but really, there is a question here. In other words, the question is like this: say there was no machna, there was no camp. There was no camp. Torah says, "Mechutz lamachna meshava," has to be outside the camp. Say there is no camp. There is no camp. So if there is no camp, and now that there is a mitzvah that they have to be 7 days. So say the mitzvah will say, I was a good boy. I was 5 days, but it was really difficult. Can I come back? You might have been, but we don't have a parole board here. We can't give off days for good behavior. The Eibush says 7 days. 7 days. 7 days. Not 6 days, and not 8 days. 7 days. Woman says, I have sick tired of 7 days. Give me 6 days. And Eibush said, that's what it is. 7 days. Now the Eibush said it has to be mechutz lamachna. Has to be outside the machna. There is no machna. So in one way you could say the point of the mitzvah was that he shouldn't be in the Jewish camp among the Jews. He wasn't there. He was bothered. He was secluded. Or you could say, no. The Torah says there has to be a machana, and he's outside the machana. But if there is no machana,
It's the way it is.
you could wait 100 days. It's not going to help. You could wait 1,000 days. It's not going to help. There has to be, there is a machana, and bodad leyeshiv mechutz lamachana. The machana is here and he's there. But the fact that he's secluded, if there is no machana, won't help. So that's the question here. Why? How would it be relevant? It would be relevant. It would be irrelevant. Say, according to the din, the mitzvah of mitzvah even exists today. The mitzvah of mitzvah exists also today. Now, so the question is, there is if a person has a mitzvah, he has to go out of the machana for 7 days, and then
where? Go from where? Which machana?
oh, that's the
The
question.
machane.
That's the question. That's the question. So like this. The truth is that Rambam holds that the Kedusha, for example, of Yerushalayim is Kitchel Shaita, Kitchel Osalovi. So say we're going to send them out, say in Yerushalayim, we're going to send them out of Yerushalayim for 7 days. Okay.
Tel Aviv?
Let him stay outside Yerushalayim, somewhere outside, in one of the Arab villages.
So Yerushalayim is called Machana, that's it?
Yeah. Yerushalayim is a machana. Because but also the cities that were all surrounded with a wall from the days of Yeshua ben Am, they were all called machana. So say we'd send them out of any one of those cities. After 7 days, the shaila is he not a Metzoida any longer? Now, he has to be boded mechutz lamachana. Now, say there's full of Arabs living in Yerushalayim. So there's not a machana. A machana means when there's Jews living here. So did he do the mitzvah of 7 days, or did he not do the mitzvah of 7 days? So it comes down to the question, is it that he's not allowed to be in the machana, or does he have to be outside the machana? If it's that he's not allowed to be in the machana, he wasn't in Yerushalayim for 7 days. But if he has to be outside the machana, there has to be a din machana in Yerushalayim, not only a din kedusha, a din machana. And the question is, today does Yerushalayim have the din machana? I don't know. It's a question. The question could be more in a sharper focus. Say 5 days or 3 days before the Churban Beis HaMikdash, a person became a Metzoida. They sent him outside Yerushalayim.
By the time he came back after 7 days,
There was no, right. No, never mind the korban, because the korban, if there's no Beis HaMikdash, you wait till Beis HaMikdash will be rebuilt. But he has to be 7 days outside the machana. Did he do the mitzvah? So again, it comes down to this question. The question is it that he's not allowed to be in the machana? He wasn't in the machana. Or does he have to be outside the machana? He wasn't outside the machana, because there was no machana. So again, the question is a simple question. Am I sitting on the chair? The chair is under me. Does it that the mitzvah has to be outside the machana? Or is he not allowed to come into the machana? So the answer is that it seems that the mitzvah has to be outside the machana. Not only is he not allowed to come in, he has to be outside the machana. So now think for a moment. This would answer the question of what was the covet. Obviously, if the cloud will go up and start traveling, what's going to happen? Miriam is going to pack her bags and travel with everyone else. She's not staying. I'm not going to live her to get killed by snakes. Chas v'sholom. Not without the protection of the Anani HaKovet.
She's in Pusam Machana, so it's good.
Pekuach nefesh, she's going with everyone. What's the question? Obviously she's going with everyone. That's not a question. That's not a shaila. Obviously she's traveling. If the clouds goes up, everyone goes. No Jew left behind. But wait a minute. What happens? Say they're traveling now for 10 days. Okay. Say they travel for 5 days. So what happens after that? They set up camp. She goes outside the camp. For how many days does she go out of the camp? 7 days. Why? She says, no, but you know what? When everyone was traveling, I was just walking 2 feet behind everyone. No. There has to be a machna. And you go chutz l'machna. So could you imagine she would now say they traveled for 5 days, so she would be a mitzvah for 12 days, because the 5 days that they're traveling, there's no din machna. There's whatever. Then they set up camp. Then she goes out. Then she counts 7 days. Then she becomes pure. So now she'd be a mitzvah, not for 7 days, for 12 days. And if they traveled for 7 days, 14 days, 15 days, whatever, however long they would travel, she would still be Mitzodas, and then they would set up camp, and then she would have 14 days. So that's what Rashi says, that there was a COVID. This was not because, say, listen, what can we do? He spoke Lashon Hara, so that's it. It's the 7 days plus the days of traveling. You get a ticket, you didn't pay right away. So $35 plus interest, you know. You get a $115 ticket, and then before you know it, you sneeze, it's $200. What can we...
Supposed to serve 3 years in the army, right?
Yeah.
You went to jail in the army for some bad thing for 2 months, 3 months. It doesn't knock you out.
No.
When you all go out, you still have to finish.
You still have to finish your time.
No, but I was sitting 14 days, I took it.
But they give it to you. But somebody
Special for you, like Miriam.
Somebody still in the army, somebody drove him not right or something, he did some violation, right? So he's in jail now for 3 months, let's say. He's not knocking out for 3 years. You still have to
Continue,
take
yeah.
the year.
So the same thing is here. It's exactly
Miriam got the same thing.
So Miriam, if they would start traveling, then
She
it wouldn't. She would be mitzvah for. So that's why there was a covet for her that they didn't travel. They didn't travel. So because they didn't travel, 7 days was 7 days. Right. It was a covet. It was a covet that went to Akir, and that's why Rashi says that the Eibishter said, we're not going in who decided to wait. The Eibishter said, the Eibishter spoke, and the Eibishter says, "V'tisoger Miriam mechutz l'machin hashivas yamim." Why did the Eibishter say that? Because because the Eibishter knew that they're not going to travel. The people don't want to travel. The Eibishter's not going to let them travel. But that's not the point. The point is the Eibishter said, let her be locked out of the machina right now, because the Eibishter knew that the cloud is not traveling for another 7 days. Now we understand why it's called kovid. And that's why Rashi says cholak la'amokim. This is what the command, the Eibishter said she should go out right away, because the Eibishter knew that the cloud is not going to move for another 7 days. Now that we understand this, we can move on and understand maybe the rest of Rashi. What's the midah keneged midah? What happened over here? You could say, on the one hand, you could say, well, you see a child drowning, obviously you have to go save the child. So what's the you deserve reward for it? On the other hand, you could say you saved the Jewish child. That's the whole reward you get. A little bit of kovid. You can ask, it this way or the other way. But the bottom line is, what was the midah keneged midah? What was the measure for a measure? And that's what Rashi says. Brings the whole posek. She stood far. Why did she stand far? Why didn't she come close? How old was she?
3 years older than Moshe.
So how old was she?
3 little girls.
Well, Adam was 3. She was a little older. She was maybe 4.
So they take her also.
Yeah. Well, is she gonna? She's gonna protect him.
Little baby.
She was a little girl, and that's why the pasuk continues. The pasuk continues, and now she quotes the end of the pasuk. L'deya maya asaloi. To know, and Rashi, according to other Gesses v'goyim, read the whole story to the end. What happened? Bas Paroi saw the child, and the child was crying. So Rashi says that she tried to nurse the child. She brought all kinds of women to nurse the baby. Moshe doesn't want to nurse. Why? Because he wants only Jewish milk. He only wants kosher milk. Kol of Yisrael. So then the girl comes. So the girl, Miriam, the little girl, says, "Do you want? If you want, I'll get you a Jewish woman." So Bas Pari said, "Leichi v'teilecho alma." What does it mean, v'teilecho alma? Rashi says, "Bezrizos v'almas." She ran quickly, and she brought the mother to nurse Moshe. So eventually, Bas Pari might have realized on her own that if the child was, it's Ivri. She realized right in the beginning. She said, "Meyalder Ivrim zeh." She realized, and if the child refuses to nurse, she might have realized on her own that maybe she should get a Jewish woman. But in the meantime, Moshe would have cried, so he would have had tzad. So that's, now we understand what Rashi's saying. Bishvil Shor Acha shenisakva leMoshe. For this small time, that Moshe Rabbeinu would have had tzad, and because it was, so she prevented from the tzad. Why? Because she was a good sister. She knew she couldn't help, but she cared for him so much. She stood from far to look. L'deya ma'yasaloi. She was a little kid. Well, she couldn't do anything. She wasn't there to protect him. It wasn't atzolos nefashos. It wasn't pikuach nefesh. But she was a good kid. She cared for her brother, and then she was wise. She was quick. She thought quickly and she ran quickly and got her own mother to get the baby. She was quick.
Get paid for it.
So therefore, that was a schar mida keneged mida. She avoided. She took away from the baby the tzar that would have been for a short time. So therefore, the tzar that she would have had for an extra little bit of short time, if they would travel now, so the din of 7 days wouldn't start. Right? Right. To give an example. I just want to give a right. Give an example. A woman has to count shiva nakim, right? So, but while she's bleeding, she can't count shivas nakim. So say our minig is we wait 5 days, right? The Ashkenazim, right? So a woman says, "I'm Ashkenazi, 5 days," but you're still bleeding. But you can't do a hefsek taida. If you're bleeding, you gotta wait 6 days, 7 days, 8 days. Some women have a problem; they can't become pregnant because they bleed for a long time. By the time to make a hefsek taida, then they have to wait 7 days. It's an unusual case, but it happens. It could happen. It could happen, and then you have to deal with it. What to do? So the same thing here would been with Miriam. She would have to. She has to count these 7 days. These sort of these shiva nakim, she has to count these clean days, but they only start counting once you go outside the machina. But there is no machina, you can't count. It's like the woman, it's after the 5 days. She can't make a hefsek taida, she needs 5 clean days, and there's still blood, there's still stains. Sometimes women are taking birth control and they're still getting little stains, or other things, the medications that they make that they should get stains. So the 5 days is finished. She's still staining, and she can't get a good hefsek taida. You can't get a hefsek taida. You can't get yeshiva nakim. You can't go to mikveh. So there would have been a tzar. So in other words, this is smamish. This is the same thing. Miriam, in order to be pure, she has to have the 7 days mechutz lamachana. In order to have 7 days mechutz lamachana, you have to have a machana. If you don't have a machana, so there's you wait till you have a machana. So therefore, she was paid mida keneged mida because she was so on top of her brother, and because of her love of her taking care of her brother, that she avoided his tzar. So mida keneged mida, the Eibusha took away her tzar, this tzar of walking with the people, and she knows that she can't start counting her 7 days. Now when
I don't get the punishment, it's Lashon Hara. She was saying something emes, it's not Lashon Hara. Never had the women that the husband is a
true
prophet.
for her level.
What's
Right.
the
Right. So for her, for me and you, maybe this might not be counted Lashon Hara, but for tzaddikus like Miriam, this was considered Lashon Hara, and maybe for me and you, the punishment, if me and you said such a thing, but for Miriam, who was a tzidkonius, the punishment was very strong because for her level, even this, but also teaches us the importance of not talking Lashon Hara.
Der Zeit Menschen in 3 Jahren gewiss, das sagt man.
Es gibt 3 Jahre alt, a Mädel, you can't tell us how viel.
Why does it use the word covet and perhaps not chesed? It's a chesed to her. She didn't do a covet to her brother Moshe. She did a chesed by saving him tsar. Why save somebody tsar? It's not a covet. Isn't it a chesed?
I hear. It's a good question, but the fact that everyone is waiting is besides the chesed is also a kavod. But I hear it's a good question. L'chayra would be more. So again, to summarize what we have here, the Rebbe is big. So the big chiddush of the Rebbe is it's the chakira and the rogachover, and the way the Rebbe explains the chakira. Again, the question is. We'd say that she got a covet here. What was the pshat covet? It was pikuach nefesh. So the Rebbe's big chiddush here is that for sure she would have traveled with them. There's no question. They wouldn't leave her behind for 7 days or for 1 day to chas v'sholem be alone in the desert. Not like the way it seems to the Rachaim or the Chassam Sofer. No, she would, like the din of the Alter Rebbe, persons with a pikuach nefesh and Shabbos, a behaloscho Shabbos, you keep on going. Because if you're going to stay in the desert, you might run out of water, you keep on traveling, for sure. But the big chiddush here is that there's a question, what is the din of boded yeitchev, that you have to be mechutz l'machna? Doesn't mean that you're not allowed to be in the machna, or does it mean you have to be outside the machna? The answer is there has to be outside the machna. It means there has to be a machna and you're outside. And if there is no machna, it doesn't start. It's like we said with the Shiva Nakim, it only starts after the Hefsek Taida. And if there's no Hefsek Taida, there's no Shiva Nakim. This was the kindness that was given to Miriam. This was the covet. And why was Mida Keneged Mida? Because she was so conscientious. It wasn't that she saved her brother's life. It wasn't. She was a little child. It wasn't. But she was on top of it. And she was wise. And she would avoid, and because of her being on top of it, it took away the tzad that he would have had. So the Eibusha took away her tzad that she could have had.
Aaron heard Lashon Hara. Why he didn't get punished? Only Miriam. He said three get punished for Lashon Hara.
Right.
The one that talked, the one that's talking about it, the one that here.
Good question. That's a good question.
Other people also with Chusla Machane?
Huh?
You wasn't alone by yourself. You could have been other people who were Chusla Machane.
It could be other people, yeah. Whoever's a Metzoida gets sent out.
Whether for the Kohen Gadol, 7 days, waiting 7 days, everybody is punished.
Isn't it that he's going to have to say separate?
No, not necessarily. It's a good question. No, not simple. It's not simple. Yeah, it could be that might be a separate din. That might be a separate din that have to be. Although from the simple pshat in the story about the 4 Mitzorim, in the story in the Tanakh, it sounds like they were talking to each other, the Mitzorim. Or could be it was a case of they were desperate. Okay. What's a lesson of Avodas Hashem over here? The Rebbe always has a lesson of Avodas Hashem. What's the lesson that we can learn from here?
Don't talk Lashon.
That's the obvious. But there has to be also a positive thing here. The Rebbe is always looking for something encouraging to us. What would be a better way of seeing it? That the Jews wanted to wait for Miriam? Obviously, it's both true. The pasuk says that the people didn't travel, but obviously also God said that they shouldn't travel because it was all with the cloud. But what would be more powerful? That the people waited, or there is an advantage in each one? Rashi says that the Eibishter waited for her. The Eibishter waited for her. So there is a thing in Chassidus that says, and the Mefarshim will point out, that says about a Metzoid of a Huva Lakoin. He has to be brought to the Koin. You could say a Bar Lakoin. He comes to the Koin. What do you mean by Huva Lakoin? He's brought to the Koin. It sounds like as if someone pick him up, they bring him to the Koin. He's kicking and yelling. They bring him to the Koin. So Chassidus says, yeah. Because what are we talking about? A person that the far out of holiness. He's not here. He's not here. He's out from all 3 camps. So this guy Nebuch, he doesn't even care. He's apathetic. He doesn't care. So he doesn't care to try to make a movement to come back to become holy again. So the Eibusha says, I'm never going to let a Jew languish outside the 3 camps. I'm going to force him. I'm going to pick him up. Because that's what the Rambam said, that the Eibishter promised that Ba'al Yidach Memena Nidach, that no Jew is ever going to be Chas v'Shalom left behind. So the Eibishter makes that sometimes even if a person didn't work on it, all of a sudden they feel an excitement in the heart, a sensation, and that pushes them to do tshuva. But where did it come from? Because it comes from the Eibishter. Even though this Yid Nebuch is already out of all 3 camps of Kedusha, he's totally out of Kedusha. But the Eibishter said, I don't care. Because every Yid is just like Miriam, deserves that there should be Cholak Lakovid. Every Jew is a neshama. So therefore, V'huva Lakoin, you'll be brought to the Kohen. So therefore, that's what Rashi says. Even though the pasuk says V'hom Naso, the people didn't travel. But it's not just the people. The Eibishter orchestrated it. Ikav la'amokim, the Eibishter. Because sometimes that person is so far out, we need that the Eibishter should make a special sensation in our heart to awaken us to come to the Kohen. So the Eibishter will help from Taka, that all of us, we're in the Shloshim Yom, in the 30 days before Gimel Tammuz. The Eibishter should help that all of us should feel that sensation in our heart, and it should be V'huva ala Kohen, we should come to the Kohen.
Amen.
Amen.